Okay, good morning. Good morning. Welcome everybody to the Saturday Morning Mastermind. I'm Samantha Studebaker-Carl, broadcasting to you live from beautiful Southwest Georgia, and I'm here with my good friends Dan and Donna, Julia, Catherine, and Sandy, and today we're going to be discussing part 2 of our 4 steps to begin using self-talk to improve your life. And last week we kind of began this conversation sharing some different situations where we had noticed our own self-talk, or we've kind of been paying attention to it, because that's the first step, is paying attention to your self-talk, so then that you know what you need to change, right? Okay, but before we get going, I want to go ahead and give my friends an opportunity to introduce themselves. And for those of you who are hanging out with us, go to SaturdayMorningMastermind.com. That's going to bring you directly to our live broadcast page where you can participate in the conversation. And when you get there, go ahead and just say, hey, good morning, something. Just let us know that you're hanging out with us. And while you're doing that, I'm going to let excuse me, I'm going to let my friends introduce themselves. Go ahead, guys.
Well, good morning, everyone. This is Julia Cologne, and I'm very, very happy to be here. This was a great, great subject, and it's so good to connect with all of you guys again. And hi, Dan, how are you? So I'll pass it on.
Good morning, everyone. I'm good. How you doing, Julia? Yeah, I'm Dan Smith. I live in Boise, Idaho, and was out of town last week, and my wife brought home seashells from the ocean. I brought home a cough, so hopefully I'll do okay this morning, and won't cough too awful much, but we'll see how we get through it. So anyways, glad to be here. Looking forward to the conversation today.
Good morning, Sandy Root here in sunny Miami Beach. Happy Halloween, and looking forward to the discussion.
Good morning, it's Katherine Clement here from Boulder, Colorado, and we're expecting snow Thursday. Glad to be here, and send me some of your sun, Sandy. Actually, we get plenty of sun here, plus snow, so it's cool.
Hello everyone, Donna Allen from Raleigh, North Carolina. Weather looks fine today so far. Look forward to the discussion. And maybe seeing some effects along the way on the panel.
Sorry, guys, I was paying attention to something else, and then all of a sudden I realized, oh, everybody's done. Okay, so let's get this conversation going. Let me jump over here to the to our live event page here and just welcome everybody who's hanging out with us this morning. Welcome, Lyra, Karen, Sean, Marsha. Let's see, BD, hey, how are you? Sandy, awesome. We've got a great group of folks hanging out with us this morning. And then to those of you who are going to be jumping on here directly, or maybe you didn't hear my what I said just a moment ago, is just jump to SaturdayMorningMastermind.com, and that brings you over to our live broadcast page where you can jump in on the conversation and add your thoughts as we go along through this topic. So what we're doing here actually is, let me, hold on a second, let me get to the right page where I can see you guys. Okay, so what we're doing is studying the book, What to Say When You Talk to Yourself, and then we've got a new light, so, by Shad Helmstetter, and we are on chapter 22, 21? Let's see, 21, chapter 21, which is getting started with self-talk. And of course, if you are new here and you haven't seen our previous masterminds, you can find all the replays at replays.saturdaymorningmastermind.com. That'll take you over to our YouTube channel where you can watch any of the previous sessions. And so if you kind of wonder what we're referring to as we go through this discussion, you'll be able to catch up with us if you like to. So let's see, the last time we talked about the first step, which is just kind of listening to your own self-talk, because when you listen to your own self-talk, that helps you to determine the things that you're actually saying to yourself when when maybe you're not really paying attention most of the time. And these are things that are going to bring you down if you're not paying close attention and you're not changing them to positive statements. If you're talking about how if you're telling yourself that you should be doing this, or you ought to be doing that, or maybe you shouldn't eat that, or if you're telling yourself that you don't like the way that you look, or any number of things like that, then those are all things that you can change. You can change what you say so that you can improve the results that you're getting in your life. Now, let's see, who wasn't on here with us last week? Julia, you weren't here, and Dan, right? Or were you on, Julia? I'm sorry.
I was here. I was here last week.
So we were just missing Dan then? Okay. Dan, I want to just kind of ask you, now last week, like I was saying, we were talking about specific situations where we notice our own self-talk, and you weren't available to jump in on that conversation. Did you want to add maybe an example of something where you've noticed when you're talking to yourself?
Yeah, I'll add a couple of them.
Okay.
I'm trying to figure out how to put it in words here. Years ago, back in the early 80s, I'd gotten involved with Amway when I was like 23 years old, 24 years old, and was in the business for a couple of years, and I was extremely shy. I've got all kinds of excuses why I didn't do it, but anyway, I quit. It was just too hard for me, okay? And I gave up. And I was out for a couple of years, and then just through a series of situations, I decided to go back into Amway again. And I'd been in for 3 years. I'd struggled and struggled and struggled, and I had an extremely low self-image, and I mean extremely low. And I worked really hard for 3 years on myself, reading all these books, the same books that we're talking about now. I mean, cybernetics. I read cybernetics back, in the mid-'70s, and studied it. And so I've been reading these books at that time for about 5 or 6 years. And so I was at a huge a meeting, and a man who was from my hometown, Boise here, he was a diamond in the Amway business. He was in my upline. And I was at this meeting. It was his meeting, and there were thousands of people there. And he was talking about he had only shown this plan personally to, I believe the number was 63, maybe it was 68. It was less than 70 people, and that he had become a multi-millionaire from just showing personally that number of people, of personal friends that he knew. Now, obviously he showed the plan way more than that, because he had sponsored, a lot more people than that. But I'm just talking about personal friends. Well, I was at the meeting, and I was all rawed up and excited and everything, and I'm going to do this thing, and how we do at the big meetings. Well, he had mentioned that he had only shown this plan personally to like 73 of his friends. I'd already showed it to well over 100 people and hadn't sponsored a single person. And I had to get up, leave the meeting, and as I was walking out, this was going through my mind. I've showed over 100 people, haven't sponsored a single person. He's only showed it to like 73 people, and he's a multi-millionaire and a diamond in this business. And as I was walking along, heading towards the bathroom, I made a statement in an unguarded moment, and it was an emotional statement that I made to myself. And what that statement was, there is something wrong with me. And when I made that statement, it's like, if you can imagine a balloon full of air, and you let loose of the end of the balloon, and the balloon just flies around the room as the air flies out. And that's how I felt. I just felt totally deflated, just instantaneously. And the effect that had on me was that over just a very, very short time, I decided to leave that business again for the second time. And what that has set up in my life has been just this pattern that I've been fighting ever since that time of lack of belief in myself, of quitting, of giving up, of just it was one statement that I made in one unguarded moment, and it has affected my life now for over 30 years. Okay, and so that's the effect that just one statement that you make that is a negative statement that you make about yourself, that is the effect that can have. I see that for whatever reason Samantha has to jump off, but something I was thinking about this morning, and I was thinking about it a little bit last night as I read this chapter again, and the power of suggestion. You know, I was thinking about communist countries like communist Korea. The people are starving. They're so poor that they can't afford to pay attention, and yet the way that they control their minds over there is through suggestion, and that they have pictures of the fearless leader everywhere smiling, and he's revered as a god, and he can't take care of his country, and yet the people are afraid not to revere him and love him because of peer pressure that takes place there. And there's a story that I read in one of the books that I've read. Can't remember exactly which one. Anyway, what the story is this: there was, like a person who was on a ship, and somebody come over to him and said, "Are you feeling okay? You don't really look like you're feeling all that well." And he says, "No, I'm feeling fine." And then pretty soon, about 20 minutes later, somebody else comes up and says, "Gosh, you don't look so well. Are you feeling okay?" And it's, well, maybe, yeah, I'm feeling pretty good. And then pretty soon another person comes by and does the same thing. "Hey, you don't look really well. Are you doing okay?" And pretty soon the person's on the back of the ship throwing up. Okay, and that's the power of suggestion, that somebody that was feeling just fine, and somebody comes along, 3 people within like an hour, telling them, "Hey, you don't look like you're doing well. Are you doing okay?" And pretty soon the person is actually sick, physically ill, and that's the effect that suggestion has on us. And the good thing about this is that we can suggest to ourselves what we want, how we want to feel about ourselves. We can plant those ideas and do that on purpose. And so that's the power of the suggestion that we have. So anyway, I didn't mean to ramble on quite this long. I'm going to turn it over to somebody else, but yeah, that's kind of some of my thoughts on that.
Well, first, I want to thank you, Dan, for sharing that, because I went through the same experiences with the self-limiting beliefs and not feeling good about who I was as a person, as a spirit, as a soul, as a woman, as a mother, because at the time when I was dabbling into these different companies, I was a mom at that time. My children were, my 2 older children were little. And yeah, I did it again this time. And I remember waiting and expecting for my upline to show me and teach me and tell me what it is that I needed to do. And these were the kind of traits and skills that I got from working, where you go to work and they teach you what to do and so forth. So I was expecting the same kind of treatment, and it didn't happen that way. But I went back to that same feeling of not feeling worthy. Like, why is this happening to some people and not to me? But the difference is that I really wanted this. And not to say that I didn't want it when my children were younger, but I was much older, I had more experiences, and this was like I wanted a big change in my life. And so what I decided to do was not wait for anyone. And I taught myself. I learned everything I can. I found a great company that taught me so much more that it actually took my business out of the direct selling company. So now I'm doing my own thing. And during that process, I realized that the more I practice, the easier it gets. But I'm doing what I truly love, and the universe just guides me to where I need to be. Who can help me, and it's just a whole different aspect that I never thought could have happened if I wasn't talking to myself and loving myself the way that I know I deserve to be. and my whole life is completely different now. I'm so much happier, and it all comes. Yes, I have my moments, I have my days, I don't wake up every day just, feeling great, but you learn, like, through the Saturday Morning Mastermind, there are techniques, there's books, there's support, there's all this information, people out there that are willing to help. And it's just, for me, was being true to my purpose and who I am as Julia Colon. So, and the positive self-talk really makes a big difference, because not only do you have to take care of yourself physically, but you have to keep your mind strong also. You have to have strength in your mind to overcome all these challenges that, we talked about it last time, that are not problems. I've always looked at them as my challenges as problems, but they, now that I see a different aspect, it's something that I can overcome. So that's my story.
Dan, I just want to point out that my theory on heavy emotions like that you were describing when you said that to yourself, how you felt like a balloon, a deflated balloon. And there's some things that we're our cruelest. We're cruel to ourselves sometimes, whether we try to be or not. We're probably more cruel to ourselves than anybody else has ever been, if we're honest with ourselves. But when we say something like that, I'm not worthy, or what's wrong with me, it immediately, if you feel your body, you do feel like that, like a deflated balloon, or you feel, like pain in your heart. You feel a heaviness in your body and in your chest, and it brings up lots of emotions and tears, and your throat gets constricted. And to me, when I feel those sensations, I immediately, regardless of what I said to myself, I mean, I look at it to see, what I said that caused that, but I immediately know that whatever I just told myself or whatever somebody else just told me is not true. It's not true, and that's why it hurts so much. And that's why our bodies signal us to say, hey, that's bullshit. Oops, sorry, guys. That's BS. So because sometimes we say things and we get the reaction in our body before we realize that we said it, So when I feel those sorts of feelings in my body, I immediately go and say, first thing I say is, well, that's not true, whatever it was. And then I go back and think, okay, what did I just say to myself, or what did somebody else just say to me that gave me such a strong experience of knowing that that is absolutely not true, and that's why it hurts so much. And you can change those things, once you recognize what you said. I'm reading a great book right now that I'm going to suggest on the next book list, because it's got some very specific actions that you can take. One of the things he says is that when you have a thought, if thoughts trigger those emotions, and they can trigger, periods of depression and all sorts of things. But if you can just disbelieve, if you can go back to that thought and just follow his steps and disbelieve it, because the only reason that you're having, the reaction that you're having to it is because you believe it. If you didn't believe it, it wouldn't, you wouldn't react to it. Like if you were walking down a mountain path, I live in the mountains or near the mountains, so if you were walking down a mountain path and everything was great, it's starting to get twilight, and all of a sudden, you heard some sound behind you. You're like, what's that, So you're walking along, you're still enjoying yourself, but you hear this sound like getting closer, and you can tell it's something big, and it's in the woods, and you look around, and you can't see because it's sort of camouflaged in the woods. Ugh. So you're walking along, your heart's starting to get a little quickened, and then you can tell that it's something really moving towards you, and you start thinking in your mind, oh, what could that be? It's not big enough to be a bear, but it might be a wolf, or it might be it's probably a mountain lion. and you remember this other person was just attacked last week on this same trail. Oh my gosh, how stupid am I to be out here, you know, in twilight. So you're starting to think, well, a mountain lion, what do I do? I know I saw something on a video. Oh, I have to turn around and be big, you know, but you're kind of afraid to do that because you're afraid when you turn around, this big cat's going to be in mid leap, you know, coming right for your throat or something. When you can, if you just put yourself in that scenario, you can feel your heart like start to quicken and your breath and, you know, your mind's starting to race. What do I do? But imagine if you had the courage to step into your power and turn around, and it was your dog, your faithful dog, that was in midair leaping towards you to give you kisses because he escaped out of the yard to come join you on the walk. It's a whole different experience, right? But all it is you believed one thing, you believed it was a mountain lion to begin with, and then you disbelieved in the second, and it completely changes the effect it has on your body. But these thoughts and emotions have huge effects on your body. Don't underestimate how powerful that can be. I probably shouldn't even have put you through all that adrenaline rush right there.
I think that's a great point about the feelings. You know, when you're really in tune with your feelings, you can see what's going on pretty quickly. Like, where is this coming from? What is that thought that I had, or this self-talk that I was just doing? You know, so the more in touch you are with those feelings inside yourself, the quicker you can see where your thoughts are and change them. And that's something that, yeah, I feel like I've gotten much better at over the years with all the books I've been reading and self-development things I've been doing. Is really being in touch with my feelings and able to more so, I mean, of course I'm not perfect. There's days where I get stuck and I'm like, where did this come from? What is it? And like, you know, it's harder to find what was that initial thought when you're stuck in it for a while, but when you're able to catch it right away, then you can change it right away, and it just transforms your life when you're able to do that quicker. And you had mentioned that question, I think it was you, Katherine, about what's wrong with me, or maybe it was Dan. And it's funny because I haven't said that in a long time, but when you said it, I'm like, wow, I used to say that a lot, like just automatic in my head, what's wrong with me? But I grew up saying that all the time, and I was probably very, you know, thinking of my body back then. It was more stiff and closed and rigid, I guess, like just nervous and here. And now I'm maybe I say that maybe once a year, and then I catch myself right away, like, no, there's nothing wrong with you. And someone, I forget who it was, said, you know, whenever you say that to yourself, what's wrong with me, you can replace it with what's right about me. And then you're looking for more positive, like there's nothing wrong with me, or if something you feel is wrong, then you can look at what is that I'm feeling is wrong about me and turn that into something positive and change that self-talk. So those are my points for now.
Yeah, isn't that funny how so many of us use that question, you know, or we have used it at some point in time in our lives. And I was thinking back over that, and, you know, there's been, you know, one of the things it talks about in this section is to pay attention to the things that are on television and that sort of thing, so you can kind of, you know, get an idea of where some of the self-talk comes from. And I remember watching a TV show when I was younger that where there was a child, and, you know, the parents were there and the children were there, and there was some, you know, like one child was like really good and the other one is this troublemaker, right? And they would ask them, you know, what's wrong with you? You know, and so it's like, I think that's one of those things where it comes from the people that, you know, that obviously they meant the best for us, but yet at the same time they said things to us that made us feel like there was something wrong, right? And Wayne Dyer shared in let's see, I think the book is I Can See Clearly Now. It's his memoir, and he shared how when he was in elementary school, he had a teacher that would just say not nice things to her children in the class because they're all being troublemakers, and she didn't know how to handle them. And so she would talk tell them they were bad kids and that, you know, they're always causing trouble, and ask them what's wrong with them, and just say things like that to try and guilt them into being, you know, better behaved, right? And you know, and how many of you have had a family member that try to guilt you into doing something by saying something negative to you, like, oh, you know, you're just no good at whatever. Why aren't you more like your brother? Or why don't you, you know, why don't you get a real job? You know, I mean, stuff like that. And you think back on it, it's like, wow, okay, well, now I know where some of this stuff came from. And we had last week, Katherine mentioned it, and who else was talking about the you know, saying cancel? It was BG. Did you write something about that on the page? I can't remember who it was, but anyway, we were saying you're going along, you say something unpleasant, and then you can just automatically say cancel or stop or terminate, or one of those kinds of just statements to stop you from having that thought process in your head, change it into something else, just like what Sandy was talking about a moment ago. And I thought it was really interesting, Katherine, when you were bringing up the feelings in your body, and how that, I feel like one of the biggest things with this is that we've been taught that we're supposed to feel bad, right? When we don't do something right, when we make a mistake, when we act out, or we don't act along the same way that other people act, as we've taught to feel bad about it. And so when we make these negative statements, or we ask ourselves, what's wrong with you, and we feel bad, it seems like the appropriate behavior, right? That's what you're supposed to do. But when in reality, those negative feelings are an indicator that we're going in the wrong direction and that we need to make that change. And you can start by, you know, just saying stop, cancel, end, and then change that into a positive statement. So I thought that was just, I don't know, really, really important to recognize that, is that you don't have to feel that way, and it's not okay to feel bad. It's actually detrimental, like Katherine was saying. And so let's talk a little bit about the self-talk of others, because it says, you know, one of the things is to recognize the self-talk of others so we can get an idea of where some of this stuff comes from. Who's got an example of maybe somebody in your life who says something that that you've recognized here in the past week?
Actually, I'll jump out with an example of a guy that used to work for me, and he worked for me for a total of about 10 years, and his name was Billy. And when Billy first came to work for me, I mean, he was a big guy. He was, I don't know, 350 pounds, something like that, and he was a good-sized man. But he's like one of those gentle giants, and he was scared of everything. He was scared of his own shadow. When he used to have panic attacks, and he had several panic attacks right on the job, you know, where, I mean, just shut down. And his constant language was, ooh, that would scare me, or, oh, that would make me so scared. And that just came from his mouth just constantly. It's just over and over and over and over again. I don't know how many times a day that he made those statements. That would scare me half to death. And just on and on and on and on he would go. And, you know, I tried to point that out to him, you know, and worked with him. And now, you know, I mean, he hasn't worked for me now for about 7 years, and he worked for me for a total of 10 years, so I've known him for like 17 years. And now he's got his own little cleaning company, and he's really a pretty positive guy. And I asked him a while back, I said, well, Billy, do you still have panic attacks? And he says, no. He says, I really don't, you know. But he grew up in a, I mean, y'all know I'm a Christian, okay? I mean, I don't hide it. I talk about it frequently. But anyway, there are different thoughts about Christianity, and there's extremely negative Christianity, which is what I grew up. Well, he grew up in a church really similar to what I grew up in. And every week you'd go to church, and they'd tell you what an awful person you are, and you're a terrible sinner, and if you don't change, you're going to die and go to hell, and you're going to burn forever in hell. And that's, to me, my opinion, that's negative Christianity. Okay, and I think there's some of you on the call that I think, Samantha, I think you kind of recognize what I'm talking about when I'm talking about that. And he grew up with this, and he was scared to death that he was going to do something wrong and going to die that later on that afternoon. He's going to go to hell and he'd burn forever because he didn't do something right. Okay, And I kind of grew up with that same scenario. Well, that's really negative Christianity. That's mind control, thought control, controlling people's lives through fear. Okay. And I grew up with that, and he grew up with that. So, I really identified with what he was going through. Okay. But there's also positive Christianity. And I'm not going to dwell on it real long, but there's two different ways of looking at it. Okay. And so you can beat people to death with your 6-gun Bible, or you can hold them up with the Bible, depending on how you look at it. So anyway, that was his self-talk. It was constant, and it created these scenarios where he would have panic attacks. He was scared half to death that he was going to, it's like you get out of bed in the morning, you're going to heaven, but if you say a dirty word by 10 o'clock, you're going to hell. But by noon, you can be headed back to heaven again. By dinner time, you're heading for hell again. You're in, you're out, you're in, you're out, you're in, you're out. And it created such a negative mental mindset for him. And the constant words coming out of his mouth was, that would just scare me. That would just scare me. And he was afraid of everything, scared of his shadow, scared of getting out of bed in the morning, scared of going to bed at night. I mean, scared all the time. So anyway, that's when you ask that question, that was the first example that came to my mind, was this man named Billy. And I'll let somebody else talk.
I'd like to jump out real quick on, just kind of shifted a little bit here. I know you're getting ready for, I'm not sure if we've come to a conclusion on what book we're going to go at yet, right, Samantha? Is that true? We haven't come to that conclusion? We haven't decided? Okay. Yeah, was I right? Just I can't hear you.
Yeah, I thought you were going to go ahead and go, but yeah, we're still looking at that. I think we have a decision made, but I was going to talk about that at the end of the show. So
okay, well, I'll be brief. I'll be brief. I just wanted to kind of top off a little bit what I've heard each of you say here. Life as we know it is very strange, and as they say, in many ways. And as children, a lot of times someone will say, "You do this, you do that." Well, the negative thing that I battle with the most is coming to grips with being comfortable in myself, because I was always so. Have you ever seen a child? And I don't have children. You friends on the panel that has children, watch the behavior of a child that is opposite of what you do this, you do that. If you watch their behavior, they are saying a lot to you, and it's not really they're being what they say a bad A. I don't like them. I watch my words like Katherine said. They're just really saying to you, hey, this is my personality. I'm trying to find my way. And I'll be honest with you guys, I'm going to wrap it up with this one. Reading books is like a person's personal journal already. They've already wrote their journal in a book. And when you come along and you start reading these books, because it's like you take whatever they read in this book and you fit it, try to layer through it and find you in the process. Because I find a lot of times offline and online, so many people are just not comfortable in their own skin. And sometimes I battle with that. I go back to that. I'm back and forth with that, back and forth. That's my biggest pet peeve, as far as that goes. It's just battling with being comfortable in your own skin. You're perfect just the way you are. That's all I want to say on that one.
That's awesome. I wanted to just address something real quick. Is that BG reminded me that it was Karen that made the comment on the discussion last week about saying terminate and changing or just saying a cancel statement. And I know Katherine mentioned it as well. But Karen's got a comment that she just posted on the page. I wanted to share this. She says, I can't help but think that often throwing out the question, what is wrong with you, is a redirect. Say in the case of teachers who don't want the interruption of having to deal with something they hadn't intended. And then she also says, TV ads seem assaultive in directing our attention to all the health problems we could have. And I wanted to kind of connect that one to what Dan was saying, because he was talking about his friend who kept saying, that would scare me to death, you know, and stuff like that, and the fact that he was having these panic attacks, right? So he was actually causing himself, by programming his own mind, to have these reactions, a physical reaction. And when Karen's talking about the TV ads that are constantly telling us all these possible things that could be wrong with us, even when we don't even think there's something wrong, and then you see this ad, and maybe you had this symptom last week, and you're like, oh my God, I might have blah blah, whatever it is, you know. And they just keep making up more and more. It just boggles my mind, all these things they keep coming up with. But, you know, I mean, that's all the pharmaceutical industry. We won't go into that. But what else did I want to mention on here? Feelings. Oh, I guess that was just the main thing, was the feelings in the body and how that can actually manifest into something physical. But anybody want to talk more about the self-talk of others? All right, Dan, I didn't even let everybody talk, so jump out there. I'm just in the middle of the conversation, cutting y'all off.
If you don't mind, I'm going to read something out of Cybernetics, and it's a little long, but bear with me. I think it'll be worth it. It says, feelings cannot be directly controlled by willpower. They cannot be voluntarily made to order or turned on and off like a faucet. If they cannot be commanded, however, they can be wooed. If they cannot be controlled by a direct act of the will, they can be controlled indirectly. A bad feeling is not dispelled by conscious effort or willpower. It can be dispelled, however, by another feeling. If we cannot drive out a negative feeling by making a frontal assault upon it, we can accomplish the same result by substituting a positive feeling. Remember that feeling follows imagery. Feeling coincides with and is appropriate to what our nervous system accepts as real or the truth about environment. Whenever we find ourselves experiencing undesirable feeling tones, we should not concentrate upon the undesirable feeling, even to the extent of driving it out. Instead, we should immediately concentrate upon positive imagery, upon filling the mind with wholesome, positive, desirable images, imaginations, and memories. If we do this, the negative feelings will take care of themselves. They simply evaporate. We develop new feeling tones appropriate to the new imagery. If, on the other hand, we concentrate only upon driving out or attacking worry thoughts, we necessarily must concentrate upon negatives. And even if we are successful in driving out one worry thought, a new one or several new ones are likely to rush in, since the general atmosphere is still negative. And you know, I was reading that last night. I just thought it was so appropriate, you know, that it's a matter of focus. It's what are you actually focusing your attention on? And I think that's why, you know, I heard years ago, you attract what you are, not what you want. And you want one thing, but you're actually something different than that. And everybody is trying to change their exterior circumstances, hoping that life will change. But the problem is you attract what you are. And so you actually, that's why we read these books, that's why we listen to audios, that's why we do these exercises, in order to change ourselves from the inside, and then our outside world will change. So what you're concentrating your thoughts upon is what you're drawing to you. Okay? And so when you are concentrating on the negative, but you want a positive outcome, you're still going to get a negative outcome, because you are actually concentrating on the negative and drawing that to you. And you know, the Bible verse that you're all familiar with, as a man thinks within his heart, so is he. And so that's where it's a matter of substituting a negative thought with the law of substitution, where you actually focus your attention, focus your mind, focus your thoughts on a positive. And that's what's going to change you from the inside out. That's what's going to change your outer world, is when we change the inside world. And that has to be done first. It's a law of cause and effect. You know, you have a negative cause, you have a negative effect. If you have a positive cause, you have a positive effect. But it begins on the inside. And we can't change our outer world until we change our inner world. So I'll let somebody else talk.
Dan, I agree with you, especially with the Bible verse that you just quoted. Um, I remember, I'm going to try to make this as sweet as I possibly can, but I had a conversation when I was first deciding to become a stay-at-home mom. And I was talking with a family member, and she had said, we was talking about work and money, and she had said something to the terms of, well, all women have to work. Welcome to the club. It's something like that. And, you know, we all have jobs we don't like and so forth, but we have to do it anyway. It was something, you know, this was when I was first doing what I needed to do to get myself to be a stay-at-home mom. So I, you know, politely said to her, you should be very careful with what you say, because if I didn't really believe in myself, I would feel bad about what you're telling me, and I would stay in this job. And it's not that working is not bad. It's just my dream to be a stay-at-home mom and pick up my daughter from school and drop her off. And when she's off from school, I don't have to worry about who's going to stay with her and look up for all these, you know, someone else to watch her. And I was offended by what she said, because just like my dream, I'm living, you know what, put it this way, I'm living my dream now. And if I listened to what she said or what anyone else was saying, I would still be working and I would still be unhappy. What my future holds for me, I don't know. All I know is that I'm being true to myself, I'm being true to my purpose, and I'm doing it. And I have to remain positive and do the self-talk, and the gospel plays a very big part in my life, because if it wasn't for the gospel, for my pastor to tell me, and I remember the day he said, when my whole life changed, when he said, you don't have to put up with nothing. That's exactly what he said. And I was like, he's absolutely right. I don't have to put up with this. So I just, like, everything just changed for me, because I was unhappy, but it was like the norm to me. That was normal to me to be unhappy. It was normal to me to do things for others without doing for myself. And that was normal to me. When he said that, my whole life changed. And that's when I started to get more into the gospel, more into, I mean, even now, like, I've always wanted to teach in the children's ministry. I do that now. And I have, you know, 3 to 5 year olds, and I'm with my daughter and I'm teaching her too. So yeah, I don't know where I'm going with this, but I hope it makes some sense to someone, that whatever your dream is, whatever your vision is, you can do it because it's your God-given right to have that. And never let anyone take that from you. No one has a right to do that. That's my story.
Other people's words can have tremendous impact on us. How wonderful for you to call her out on that. That's awesome. Maybe she'll think twice before she says something like that to someone else. You know, I've sort of had a mixed bag on that, just because of my personality. The times when people told me I couldn't do something, it just really spurred me on, like, oh yeah, watch this, you know, and it really pushed me forward to prove to them that I could. So I wound up being actually quite thankful that they told me I couldn't do it. But yeah, our words, you know, the media is crazy. I don't even watch it, and you know, I'm online a lot, so things come up on the side or whatever. But thankfully, because of cookies, the internet knows everything I'm interested in, so it only tends to pull up things that I'm interested in, which is good. I don't have to see all that other stuff. The things that I hear most from especially people starting these, you know, trying to work from home, people that have been in traditional work situations and then try to work for themselves. And with the learning curve that comes with the technology side of that, if they're not a techie, is that I can't do this. You know, I don't know how to do this. Sorry, if I'm shaking, but my dog is on the bed here with me. I can't do this. And I said that a lot too when I first came online, because I didn't even know how to do email, much less shoot videos and edit videos and, post things across different social media platforms and stuff. I didn't know how to do any of that. And I told myself in the beginning, I can't do this. I don't know how to do this. I'm not good at this. Most of that was me comparing myself to what I saw other people doing. Not again, that's one of those thoughts that brings on bad feelings in your body that tells you that that's not true. And if you just step out and be the observer for a minute and look at the situation and think realistically about it, maybe that person I'm comparing myself to has been doing this for 10 years, and then I'm trying to come online and expect that I can do the same thing in 3 days, or, it's very unrealistic expectations that we put on ourselves by comparing ourselves to other people. Certainly the things that we hear growing up have tremendous impact on us, and we have to go back and sort of undo those things. But recognizing them is the first step to that. You have to recognize that where that came from. Sometimes it's easy because it's, a situation that stands out in your mind, but sometimes it's just those little insidious messages that you get. Like my grandmother raised me. She was a strong, independent woman and taught me to be a strong, independent woman. And but she also taught me that you have to work hard. She worked like 16, 18-hour days, and she had some health issues with her legs. She had these horrible ulcers on her legs, and she was just in tremendous pain, and she had to stand on her feet to work. So, she taught me to be strong and independent. She also taught me to be extremely stoic, I guess is the word I'm looking for, that you just push through everything. It doesn't matter what it is. She was like the guy on the bridge fighting the guy, and he keeps cutting parts off of him. He's like, oh, it's just a flesh wound. That was my grandma, and I have certainly taken on some of those aspects. So I had to learn to be much kinder to myself, because she just put her body, she lived on coffee and cigarettes. So, I had to kind of choose a different path for myself. But it's easier if you can just pretend like you're, well, you don't have to pretend, but that's a whole nother story. But just pull yourself up out of your body and look at the situation as the third person, as the observer. And sometimes you can see these little hooks that we have back to childhood, or things that people have told us, or things we've heard on the media. And I agree with you about the pharmaceutical commercials. I think they're programming people to be sick, literally, just through suggestion.
It's amazing you would say that, Katherine, because with I was watching TV. It must have been like 2 o'clock in the morning, and they had some medicine on. And if you listen to the end, it says if you have this, and if you have that, and if you have this, this may cause this. And I was just like, if that ever happened to me, I would not even take the medicine. Like, it caused even more problems. And there was one where, because my TV, I can actually pause it, and it had in the bottom, like, if you have these conditions, and it was very, very, and it was like a long list of conditions, and I'm like, I cannot believe that they're actually giving this medication. And I found myself worrying about my health, like, oh, I can't, let me make sure I eat right, I can't have a beer, my my kidney's gonna go. Like, I was thinking like that. But what I've done to change that is I started going out more. And now I go to the gym and I practice yoga. And on demand, they have a show called Gaiam TV. and sorry if I mispronounced that, but that is exercise and meditation and mindset and cardio and stuff. So when I watch TV, that's what I'm watching. The only thing I do watch, and I have to admit, is Wednesday nights I watch couples therapy. That's it. But otherwise, I'm either outside, or I'm doing a video, I'm working, or I'm exercising. Something because I think TV really had a big impact on my life and what society was. I remember when I was working, and all the girls in the job, like, we couldn't wait to get to work that Tuesday morning, just to talk about a show that came on that Monday night. And it was not a good show. I mean, not that it wasn't a good show, but it's nothing that I do now, So it was so weird how I would get together with them to talk about something that was negative against women, against men, against relationships, and it's amazing how TV has an impact on us on social media.
Yeah, I posted in the page over here, and I'm going to read this. It says, my son is 34 years old now, but when he was a child, he'd be playing on the floor, and I'd be watching the news, and they'd be talking about a disease, and I mean, he's a little kid. I didn't even think he was listening, and like an hour and a half, 2 hours later, he'd come crying, and he had the disease, okay, in his mind. He had the disease, and I'll tell you something on myself. When I was young, my sisters, and I had an extremely vivid imagination, and my sisters, they knew what they was doing to me. But we'd be sitting at the supper table, and they'd be talking about something like a teacher read a book in school today, and all they had to do was mention something like a dead cow, okay? And in my mind, pretty soon I could see a dead cow laying out in the desert or whatever, and the skin starting to fall off, and I could see flies on it, and I could see maggots in it crawling all over and chomping down, eating, and I could just see the thing decomposing. I could actually smell it, and pretty soon I'd be running outside, throwing up out in the front yard. I mean, and that's the power of suggestion, and the images that we hold in our mind, and I'm past that now, but more than once, my sisters had me out throwing up in the front yard. So, anyways, yeah, when you're a child, we're almost pure subconscious mind, and then we pour into that subconscious mind, all the things that we're supposed to learn. And when we go to school, if we're daydreaming, which I spent a lot of time daydreaming, I was always in trouble because my body was there, but I wasn't, and some of that still goes on. But anyway, yeah, just the power of thought, power of suggestion, and what that can do for you in your life. So I'll hush up now.
Can I just pause real quick on that? We were talking about, I don't know if I've ever said this since I've been on the call. Everything we've been through from like childhood and starting out with the Amway days and the cell days. How many of you here remember the Alpine days? Or see, there's a lot of things that people don't know. This is not that I'm pinning any roses on myself, but I met this guy this week, and someone says, Donna, I'm saying this to bring a point. You never heard of him? Where you been? You been under a rock? No. I've been in my own skin. I mirror and match. There's a lot of things you may not know until, hey, you just don't know until you're enlightened on it. But he said this one thing, and I'll leave this with you. It really brought home to me is about an old computer I had. I said, I need to just toss that thing out. I just tossed that thing out. Mirror and match. Rewinding, going back to the Alpine days. I'm thankful for, the Amway days. I loved the Amway days. I had some good times with the Amway days. I just wasn't consistent. If I would have been consistent, but it's okay. It was all a learning process for me, because that's when the bug bit me in the Amway day. Thankful for the Amway. Moved me into some good times. Now this guy says, you get ready to toss out the computer? Yeah, I'm going to toss it out. No. Take the hard drive out. Go have it reprogrammed. Listen to this now. Listen. Take the hard drive. Your computer's not damaged, Donna. We sometimes think we're damaged goods. We think we need to be tossed out. We're no good no more. You know, like, what am I? Who am I? You know, take the old inner self out, the inner drive, the hard drive, go have it reprogrammed, and what's in there will be new again, just with some developing, some new reprogramming. That kind of sums it up for me, guys. I've enjoyed it. Okay? All righty.
Okay, guys, we're getting really close to the top of the hour, and I wanted to discuss a couple of things. And but first of all, I just want to thank everybody for adding their thoughts to the discussion this morning and sharing all of these different things that we can start recognizing the self-talk that is not only that we're doing to ourselves, but that that the people around us that are doing, the media is doing, the television shows that we're doing, because when you can recognize these negative things that are happening or that people are talking about, then you can begin to change your attitude towards what other people say, as well as to change the things that you're saying to yourself. So guys, let's see, what was the three things I wanted to talk about? Okay, I wanted to recap what we were saying, which I think I pretty much did. Oh, actually, I just wanted to recap this chapter because, of course, you know, it said we talked that we were going to say 4 steps to begin using self-talk, and of course, the first step is listen to your own self-talk. Second one is listen to the self-talk of others. The third one was to make a list of the self-talk that you're doing so you can really recognize it and then make some changes. And then the other one is to pay attention to the media and what you're hearing out there in the world, because then, like I said, you can change it. So all right, so that's it for this particular hangout. What I also wanted to talk about was we are coming up on the end of this book, and we've had quite a few people vote on which book we're going to study next, and we've decided that we're going to study a book from Wayne Dyer, because he's just such an influential personal development coach out there, and you know, he passed away earlier this year, so I wanted to just make sure that, or not make sure, I just wanted to pay tribute to him and share some of his amazing knowledge. And so I posted a link there on the event page where you can jump over and just vote on which books that you want us to study the next time. And if you just click on, there's a link to each book so you can learn a little bit more about each one to make a good decision, and then just click on the bar that has it, and that will help you, that'll place your vote. Excuse me. Okay, and then the other thing I wanted to mention is that when we get done doing this book, we're going to have a 2-week break in between this book and the next book. And one of the things that we're going to do on that 2-week break is Katherine's actually going to do a session for us that is, I don't know, Katherine, do you want to just talk about it just a little bit and just share what you're going to do for us? Just a brief description.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm just going to do some energy clearing around beliefs that don't serve, and hopefully clear some beliefs about maybe abundance issues, things like that. Just do some clearing for people to help make room for more good stuff to come in, basically.
Okay, awesome, awesome. So guys, if you want to participate in that, it looks like we're probably going to be doing that on November 21st, and it'll be the same time, 10 a.m. Eastern, Saturday morning, and it'll just be at our Saturday Morning Mastermind time. And if you want to make sure that you get notified about that, jump over onto our mailing list. And let me post a link here real quick to make sure you guys can get on our mailing list. And hold on, I gotta make sure I type it correctly. Okay, that should get it. There you go. Okay, guys, so with that, get on our mailing list so you can get notified about that. And, of course, you'll also get reminders for our Saturday Morning Mastermind and that sort of thing. So with that, have a great day, an awesome and amazing weekend, and we'll see you next week here on the Saturday Morning Mastermind. Bye for now.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.